I was sitting here in the restaurant and reflecting on my life. I've been through a lot of wild things, but wild is probably not the right word. Strange, weird, different, it all fits. Maybe my life was normal, perhaps everyone had a similar life, but just didn't talk about it. No, it couldn't be, unless everyone was in prison. I served time for a crime I committed. You see, I took out a man. I got 15 to life, and now I'm out. According to the judge, I had extenuating circumstances, so, wow, I'll be out in just 15 years. At least I got out 5 years earlier than expected with a deferment for good behavior. 15 goddamn years for destroying the man I thought was raping my wife. If I knew then what I know now, there probably wouldn't be two people there at once if I couldn't just walk away. I am a man, and I had a lot of pride at the time. Let me explain life and how I see it. People around us behave in certain ways, and we react to their actions. Gosh, that sounds silly. Let me give you some examples. All movie stars have sex and get married now and then. The movies themselves are all about sex. Now, television is all about sex. So when I'm in public, I look at every woman and think about sex. However, there are some women I wouldn't go within 10 feet of unless you've been in prison for 15 years. And there are some women I'd almost go to jail for until I got away from reality. For today's youth, all this stuff and lifestyle is the norm. But for us slightly older people, especially those who have been out of the workforce for a while, it's sexy as hell and very embarrassing. I don't even know where to begin my story. I have enough information in my head to write a book. I will start, I think, with the story of my once beautiful marriage, which ended in divorce when I went to prison. Rita had been my wife for almost 10 years. I had just graduated from college and was a regular guy looking for a job. I showed up at one firm, and while I was waiting for an interview, I kept glancing at the receptionist. Damn, what a cute woman. At 22, I looked at women the way a younger guy would. They were girls, broads, chicks, or women. All those words were interchangeable to me. I kept smiling at the receptionist, who turned out to be Rita. We struck up a conversation, and eventually, I asked her out on a date. I got the date but not the job. I found a job selling hardware. It was a well-paying job. I got both a salary and sales bonuses. Life was going pretty well for me, fresh out of college, a girlfriend, and a good job. I was on my way to a successful career and life. Just a few months later, I proposed to Rita, and we married. The mayor of our town officiated. I couldn't have been happier. We bought a nice house and started a family. A year later, we had a son, and 2 more years later, a daughter. As far as I knew, life was good. We had problems, but we also had good times. Our life went on just like all of your neighbors. We took care of the kids, took them on vacations, and had the usual neighborhood barbecues. I never suspected that my wife was anything but faithful and loving to me. I know I was faithful to her. I had many chances for affairs as I traveled a lot, but I did my best to be a loving husband and stay on track. I must admit it was hard at times, but I kept my pride and always put my family first. We decided to build a pool for the kids. Well, actually, it was for all of us. That's what I'm trying to say. I never expected this development. I thought we had a loving marriage, a good relationship. I must have been walking around in Neverland with my eyes closed. Rita seemed like a good wife and mother to me. We had problems and arguments, of course, just like any other married couple. Even 15 years later, I still can't get over it. Where the hell did I go wrong? We installed a pool and enjoyed it. The children, who were 7 and 9 years old at the time, were in the pool all the time. Rita and I would go there after dark, and we would do it in the water. After the first couple of times, Rita decided she needed to put up a fence so the neighbors wouldn't see us while we were in the pool. I started putting up the fence the next day, installing the fence posts. I knew it would take a week to install on my own, so I left all the tools I would need, like a wheelbarrow and shovels. The only tools I put down were hand and power tools. In case it rained, I had to go out of town for a couple of days and told Rita that I would finish the fence when I got back. As usual, she got mad at me, saying that I never stay at home like other husbands. I explained to her for the 100th time that I was a salesman and had to travel. It was my job. She yelled at me and told me that I should be at home like other husbands, stay at home, and protect my family. She was always saying things like that to piss me off. I told her that if anyone tried to attack her, we had a gun in the nightstand next to the bed. What was a guy to do? A lot of men traveled. Did their wives always complain? Maybe I should get a job where I don't have to travel. I'll talk to her about it after this trip. The money will be a lot less, but at least I'll be home. That might satisfy her. In the morning, I kissed her goodbye and told her I would try to be home in 2 days. I told her to take care of herself and to call. She told me not to worry, she might not be home again. She played the woe is me game, and I left on my journey. The first night, I was to stay only 40 miles from home. I usually stayed in a motel to get a quick start on the next day. After our fight, I decided to surprise her by going home and making the extra drive the next morning. By the time I got home, it was getting dark, and I pulled up in front of the house. There was a strange car parked across the street. Being a salesman, I always noticed things like that. The lights in the house were off, except for the lamp in the living room. I turned the knob, but the storm door was locked, so I went to the back door by the pool. I heard Rita screaming and rushed to the back porch. There, Rita was being raped by a stranger. I heard her screams, but I didn't listen to what she was saying. I grabbed a shovel, ran out to the pool deck, and hit the rapist as hard as I could with the shovel on the back of his head and neck. I must have hit him 3 times, but I don't know exactly. He rolled off Rita onto his back, and there was blood everywhere. Rita started screaming again. What did you do? What the hell did you do? I think she was in shock. As I ran into the house and called 911, Rita was screaming and crying at the same time. Until the paramedics and police arrived, there were 2 ambulances there. One took the rapist, and the other took Rita. The police officers told me that they would have to handcuff me, take me to the station, and interrogate me. I said I understood, but needed to know where my children were. The officer said he asked my wife if anyone else was there, and she said our kids were spending the night at her sister's house. They were planning on being there. I thought, thank goodness they weren't home. God knows what might have happened if they had been there. Rita's sister, Thelma, was a real beauty. She was 2 years younger than Rita and was always going out on dates. She was stocky with a pretty face. When she was around me, she was always flirting. I could have fallen in love with her very easily. Now looking back, I think I picked the wrong sister. Funny how a nice girl like Thelma never married, at least not in the 10 years I knew her. When we got to the station, the officers took me into a room and started asking me questions. I told them to tell them everything I knew, and then I would answer any other questions they might have. I started by telling them how Rita and I had a fight, and I decided to surprise her and go home. When I saw the man raping her, my adrenaline just went into overdrive. I grabbed a shovel and started hitting him with it. The whole time, I was telling them that Rita was screaming. I mentioned that the night before, Rita had said that she thought I should be home at night to protect her and the kids, so that was the first thing I thought when I saw the intruder. The officers asked me if I knew the man, and I said I did not. Have you ever seen him before? The officer asked. I told them he seemed a little familiar, but I couldn't identify him. That's when I got the shocking news. I had been arrested for second-degree murder. I couldn't believe it. I told the officer it was impossible. I came home and found a man raping my wife, and I stopped the assault and was arrested. We just got back from talking to your wife, and we took her statement. She wasn't raped, it was her boyfriend, and they had sex, the officer said. God, no. That can't be true. Rita is my loving wife. We have 2 children together. She hasn't had an affair, I cried. The officer looked at me and said, Boy, I'm really sorry for you, but you killed a man tonight. You took the law into your own hands, and now you will have to stand trial for his death. I stopped talking. My mind stopped working. I had no idea what was going to happen next. The officers handcuffed me and took me to a cell and then removed the handcuffs. The next morning, I was taken to court for arraignment and bail. I was ordered to pay $1 million and was charged with second-degree murder. That meant I would have to find $100,000 to get out on bail. The only way was to cash out our savings and maybe take out a second mortgage. I called the house and got only an answering machine. I was never bailed out. Rita never returned my calls and never spoke to me alone again at all. The next time I saw her was in court when she literally testified against me. They say a wife shouldn't testify against her husband, but Rita volunteered. The Alan I killed was her boyfriend. It looked like she was going to ask me for a divorce and marry Alan. I couldn't prove I didn't know Alan. How do you prove you don't know someone? Alan had been working with Rita for the